Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me with the mic? Fabulous. Okay. So this is an amazing day, and it's actually really tremendous to be looking out at this crowd of people. I just want to say welcome, and thank you for making the journey to Pomfret this weekend. We ordered up the weather specially, and happily it came through. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Heather Willis Daly, and I am Pomfret's head of school. It's been an incredible privilege to get to know your children this fall. I hope yesterday and today have given you glimpses into your child's learning and growth here at Pomfret, from conferences with my outstanding colleagues, to yesterday's gallery opening and certificate program exhibition, to this morning's experiential education fair and the college programming that was taking place. I hope you've also had the opportunity to begin to connect with your child's friends and their families. Relationships are at the heart of a boarding school experience, and those are not just contained to our students. As parents and guardians, your involvement here at Pomfret is incredibly valued. Huge thanks go out to the Pomfret Parent Executive Council, otherwise known as PPEC, led by Sarah and Mason Power. I know that they were also joined by a number of other members of PPEC, and I don't know if any of them are here, but if so, would you mind just raising your hands very briefly? Okay, we have a few PPEC members. Tremendous. In addition, we have 5 members of the Board of Trustees who are current parents, and they are Sean Radigan, Vivian Zhang, Brendan Giblin, Catherine Chin, and Ted DiNapoli. And again, I don't know if any of them are here. I know not all of them were able to make it, but if so, would you please raise your hands? Got at least one down in the front. Thank you. I'd like to say thank you to each of you for all that you do to support Pomfret. I do have a few slides that I'd like to share with you, and then I look forward to saving time at the end to answer your questions, as is the tradition here in this session at Family Weekend. So this photo was taken just a couple of weeks ago during the head of school installation ceremony, which was held just outside on the chapel lawn. I am the 13th head of school here at Pomfret. I keep thinking that we need a hashtag, Lucky13, to go out there, and the first woman to hold the position. Thank you. It is a real honor to stand here before you all today. Your children have heard a little bit of this, and so I apologize for those of you who are sitting in the room because you're going to hear some things that you've heard before. But I feel like in this moment, setting the context for who I am and my journey here is helpful context for you as parents. So I grew up as the oldest in the family of 4 girls on the other side of Connecticut, about 2 hours north of New York City in a small town called Wassaic, New York, which, if you know the area, is just about 10 minutes away from Millbrook School, our competitors in the battle for Route 44, about which you will be hearing more later. I've shared with members of the Pomfret community that I did not go to a school like Pomfret. Socioeconomically, it would not have been a possibility for my family. And as I shared with everyone in chapel, at the beginning of high school, I don't know that I was the kind of student that Pomfret would have been seeking either, which talks a little bit to the growth that happens over the course of our lives as adolescents and people. My mom was a teacher in my local public school, which I attended, and I was lucky enough to have parents and some teachers who believed in me and encouraged me, much like Pomfret students have in our incredible faculty and staff members here at school. I attended Wellesley College, and while I was there, I had the opportunity to sit on the Board of Admissions as a student application reader. And that was the moment that I knew that I loved education and I wanted to be part of it. I also loved being able to open the doors of education wide to other students who were looking for a similar experience in their college setting. So after a quick year in New York, working in New York City after graduation, I took a job in the admission office at a girls' boarding school in Monterey, California called Santa Catalina School. And I loved being part of a boarding school. And I really had the opportunity to have that open my eyes to what is possible on a boarding school campus like this. The depth of relationships that students form with each other and with faculty members, the incredible growth and maturation that happens over the course of their time in this kind of a setting, And that was something that I decided that I wanted to be part of my life's journey as I found my way professionally. From there, over the course of the last 30 years, I've had the opportunity to work in a number of different schools across the country, including Hawkins School in Ohio, St. Andrew's School in Delaware, and most recently Laurel School in Shaker Heights, Ohio. Much of my time in schools has been spent in the work of intentionally creating and crafting communities. I don't think anything is more essential to building a school culture than the students and the adults who make up that community. In a boarding school like Pomfret, bringing together students from around the country and across the world from incredibly different backgrounds, giving them the gift of living and learning together is life-changing. And I know from talking with so many of you over the course of this weekend that you see that in your children, the way that they have changed and the trajectory of their lives has been altered. I have a deep faith and belief in the power of this kind of education. So this fall, I've spent a lot of time trying to get to know this community, as you can see from lovely, lovely photos up here in front of you. And the big piece that I've been thinking about is the importance of my presence in this community as the way to really come to get to know it. And so that has ranged from everything from weekend activities. The very first weekend, I was at the square dance, do-si-doing. I see one of my partners back up there in the back. Participating in witnessing Form Olympics. I had the opportunity to be with the freshmen during their first Saturday Quest program in which they were heading over the wall out on our adventure course. And I will admit I shed a few tears as that all was successfully completed. I hosted the sixth form at dinner at our house. We started a tradition of monthly open houses at Campbell House, which a couple of weeks ago involved s'mores and fire pits in our backyard. And each week we're welcoming a different advisory group to Campbell House to eat with my husband Brendan and I, given that we don't have advisees this year, but as a way to really come to get to know students in different venues. And then there are the simple things, which actually aren't necessarily automatic. Trying to be in the dining room to eat our meals, having my door open when I'm not in meetings, tempting them with donuts and candy and a puzzle table by any means necessary. And so that's been an incredible privilege to really come to know the nuances and the rhythms here at Pomfret. And so another side of my world is starting to get out and meet other members of the Pomfret community. Alumni, parents, trustees, and so that's another important piece of the role that I've been called to play. And I'm excited for those opportunities. Those have already begun. Just this past week, I was in New York, in Worcester. This next week, I'm heading off to other spots as well. Boston later on this year to San Francisco, Seattle, Chicago, Florida. And next year, intend to do some traveling internationally as well. And that's an important piece for me, to really intentionally build those relationships with community members. And so whether it's this weekend or while I'm traveling, I hope that I have the opportunity to learn more about you and your family's Pomfret experience to help inform my leadership of this incredible school. Next month, we are kicking off our school reaccreditation process, which is something that independent schools are required to do every 10 years. Accreditation is a mark of quality assurance that goes beyond simply meeting standards. It's a commitment to continuous improvement, innovative practices, and a focus on our students and their learning. Now, Pomfret is accredited by the New England Association of Schools and Colleges, otherwise known as NEASC. And the process consists of several phases, the first of which is a self-study, which we are beginning this year. And I'm actually incredibly grateful that this is happening during my first year, because I've been asking lots of questions of lots of different people while I'm here and trying to come to understand Pomfret, its foundations, so that we can then chart the path forward in its future. And so the opportunity to really look at every aspect of Pomfret's program, I think, is a unique gift that I have in this first year. And I'm incredibly grateful to history and social sciences teacher Gavin Flood, who's going to be leading that process with the adult members of our community. It's a unique opportunity to take stock of who we are and who we strive to be. And it also gives us a chance to speak with different Pomfret stakeholders, including you, our current parents, to get a sense of where we are succeeding and where we can improve. So please keep a lookout for those surveys. Now, Will Mitchell is not here to be able to talk about the next stage of this. This is also the accreditation process and that structure. But I would be remiss, and I know that he would want me to be able to share with you, first of all, his deep thanks for the success of our recent campaign, Amplify. And in 2017, we quietly launched the largest fundraising campaign in Pomfret's school history, which would eventually become known as the Amplify campaign for Pomfret School. And I think, as many of you know, just a few months ago, we successfully completed that campaign, exceeding our original goal of $80 million by more than $2.5 million. As I begin my leadership, I could not be more grateful to our community for these critical investments that will benefit our students and faculty today for generations to come. Now, the campaign had three major areas of focus, one around financial aid, a particular point of interest and emphasis for me both personally and professionally, one around teacher compensation and development, and one around the construction of our new Science Center, Vista. Nearly 5,000 people participated in the campaign over its course, including 1,200 current and former parents who contributed more than $26 million to Amplify, which is a remarkable reflection of our parent community and your tremendous generosity. And more than half of our alumni participated, which speaks to the extraordinary strength of our alumni and their love for Pomfret. While Vista is the most visible and tangible sign of Amplify's success, there are so many other highlights made possible by our community's generosity. During Amplify, Pomfret nearly doubled our endowment, allowing us to expand support for our faculty and financial aid programs. The Pomfret Fund, our annual giving program, was part of Amplify, and more than $3.1 million was raised in support of last year's Pomfret Fund, which was a new record for the school. And our goal is to build on our momentum from the campaign and raise even more in the Pomfret Fund this year. And this is where Will comes in. As parents, you should have all received information about donating to the Pomfret Fund. And I want to thank you for your consideration and for being as generous as you can in support of our students and faculty. We're excited to build on this momentum moving forward with your help. Next, we come to one of my favorite slides, given my background in admissions and enrollment. And again, as I said, the most amazing part of this year for me has been coming to know your children. And of course, my background is in admissions, and here at Pomfret, we had another strong year that yielded a fantastic group of new students. 85% of this year's student body are boarders who come from 29 different states and 29 different countries. 15% are day students, 25% are students of color, and 21% are international students. And 25% of Pomfret students receive financial aid. It is a remarkable student body and community. So here you can get a sense geographically of where those students come from. And the nations that our students hail from. And for a school of 350 students, that's actually a pretty astounding figure to look at. One piece of news in terms of admissions, for those of you who have younger siblings, family members, friends who may be considering Pomfret to know, is that this year we are unveiling an early decision process. I would say that we talked a little bit about this at PPEC. As much as we do to get out in the world, our admission office is incredibly busy traveling. For example, Susan Mentia-Goen, who is our Director of Admission and Financial Aid, is not here today because she is on a trip to Turkey, Thailand, and Tokyo. We love the alliteration of that. But they are out across the country and around the world spreading the good news of Pomfret. However, one of the most powerful factors in a student and a family considering a school is that they know someone who attended that school. They have a friend or a coworker or a family member who is willing to talk to them about their child's experience in their own setting. And so I would just hope that for all of you, that you, if you are asked about your child's experience, if you know of friends who are considering opportunities like Pomfret, that you send them our way, and that you speak authentically about your own child's experience here. As I mentioned, we are starting this early decision process, and this is the first time that we are going to be offering this opportunity. It is a binding agreement for prospective families who don't want to wait until the middle of April to officially become a Griffin. And if you know a family who might be interested in boarding or considering Pomfret, please let them know about this opportunity. It's a chance for them to be able to, if they are in the process and know that Pomfret is where they want to be, that we can help them along the way and eliminate the opportunity for a very large and unwieldy application process. Moving on, I hope that as parents, this is a book title that is familiar to you all. And hopefully, your children were reading this summer. And that is our all-school read, Project Hail Mary. And as some of you may know, I am a big reader. And this year's book was chosen in light of our Schwartz Visiting Fellow, which we'll talk about in just a moment. But this was an opportunity for our whole community to come together and read a book, which is written by the author Andy Weir, who also wrote The Martian a few years ago. It's an incredible book about interstellar space travel and friendship, I guess I would say, among the most unlikely of characters. It was a wonderful way to kick off our school year, knowing that our students and all of our faculty had this common experience. And later in the year, this is going to tie into our Schwartz Visiting Fellow. Since 1989, world-renowned experts in their fields have visited Pomfret under the auspices of the Schwartz Visiting Fellow program. Past fellows include dancer Bill T. Jones, who came here last year, animal science professor Temple Grandin, author Bill Bryson, human rights activist Madame Jehan Sadat, historian David McCullough, and celebrity chef Ming Tsai. And so this extraordinary speaker series is the result of the vision and generosity of Michael and Eric Schwartz, classes of 66 and 69 here in Pomfret. And Kobe Boykins is a principal mechanical engineer at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in California. He has worked on every Mars mission since 1986. And in light of his accomplishments, he was awarded the NASA Exceptional Achievement Medal in 2013. And we're really excited to welcome him to campus to speak about his background and passions with our students. Speaking of students and learning, we'll have the opportunity to talk a little bit. I hope that you recently received an email from Gwyneth Connell speaking about the work that we are doing in terms of competency-based learning here at Pomfret. And so I'd love to be able to invite Gwyneth up to the stage to speak a little bit about that. And at the end, we'll have the opportunity to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you so much, Heather. And thanks to all of you for being here this morning. This has been just an extraordinary weekend. I was sitting next to a parent last night who turned to me and said, I think this is like the best day of my life. And that was just so wonderful to hear. And it just makes me so happy to see all of you getting to experience what we get to experience alongside your kids every single day. I talked to a colleague of mine this morning who said that they had, in one of their conferences, there had been a grandparent in the conversation who, when they were talking about competency-based learning, they said, oh, you grade on the rainbow. And we thought that was such a lovely way of framing it. And because if those of you who have been here a few years know that there is no metaphor that I cannot torture to death, I thought about how a rainbow is really about taking pure white light and refracting it and splitting it up into these different colors. And so really the true rainbow of competency-based learning isn't necessarily the colors, although they are very pretty, but it's the competencies themselves, those learning outcomes. We're taking the white light of a curriculum and splitting it up into really discrete things that your child will know and be able to do as a consequence of having taken the class. And a lot of that has to do with our desire to help your kids build their intrinsic motivation to learn. Many of you have had experiences in school where you know it's working and it's rigorous because it hurts so much. And something we think about a lot at Pomfret is how do we preserve the joy of learning and that intrinsic desire to pursue knowledge while making it really hard, making it really challenging, engaging kids at the point where they are, and pushing them to get to the next level. And so those learning outcomes that we define and that we provide feedback about on an ongoing basis is really about helping kids connect the thing they're doing today in their classes with the future they imagine for themselves. So maybe they're reading an Elizabethan sonnet in English class, and they're like, what am I doing? What does this have to do with anything? But hopefully, when we parse it out into, well, part of this is about teaching you to pay close attention, to do close reading, to notice the word choices that an author has made. Part of this is we're going to ask you to write something about it later. And we do think that your ability to make your thinking visible through the written word is a skill that is going to serve you later in life. We hope, and we experience on a regular basis, that when we parse it out really explicitly for our students, the penny drops and they're able to see those connections that are obvious to us as the adults, but that may not be as plain to them who are on their learning journey. So a big part of competency-based learning is that identification of the learning outcomes. And then the feedback that they get. Another thing that you may notice, or you may not notice because your kid is just saying, oh yeah, I got 2 greens and a blue. But the words that go along with each of these stages are intended to be purely descriptive. So much of the feedback students get in school is often deficit-based. It's like, oh, well, here's what you're not good at yet. Here's what you still have to work on. Here's what's hard for you. And we wonder why school becomes demotivating, why school starts to hurt. But when we describe what's going on, each of these levels of competency is just describing what the kid is doing. The green is the goal. They're riding the bike. They're practicing skillfully. They can do the thing, and their foundation is strong enough to build on. And then that blue, when they're excelling beyond the standard, that means they've found a way to extend themselves even further than what we thought was absolutely necessary. Another comparison I often use is with driving. I always think of the 4 for driving as driving stick shift. Here I am, fully functioning adult, can't drive stick shift. I have managed for 46 years without ever learning to drive stick shift, but it's okay, I'm still a driver. And so we really encourage our kids to see that 3 as accomplishing the goal, and then the 4 is how have you chosen to extend yourself? People who can drive a stick shift, so awesome that you can do that. It's taking it to the next level in a way that's personally fulfilling. And so this is the way that feedback looks when your students get it. So this student probably called home and said, oh yeah, I got 2 greens and 2 yellows. But what they're also seeing here is that as far as engagement and preparation and organization go, they're doing great. They are meeting all the expectations. And so as they think about where they need to invest their energy, and everybody has limited energy and limited bandwidth, this student, as they think about their next assessment, should be thinking about how they can grow in sophistication of expression, how they can continue to develop their oral expression or oral communication. And so the feedback here says, at times it was difficult to follow your arguments. Okay, I'm going to go to office hours then and talk about here's what I'm planning to do in my next oral presentation. Are my arguments easier to follow? Am I growing in this way? So we really want our teachers to act as coaches who are giving kids the specific pathway that they need to follow to get to the next level of proficiency. And the other piece of this, so in the same way that the competency-based approach to grading and assessment has followed the class of 2026 through their time at Pomfret, so this is the year when we are finally completely providing feedback in this way in every class. The learning record is following the class of 2028 through. So last year with our freshmen, we started a process of having our students reflect periodically on their learning, curate some evidence around a set of competencies that aren't aligned with individual departments, but are aligned with our portrait of the graduate. So as an example, so this is split into foundational competencies, which are the ones that we think every student will earn, and advanced competencies, which are the ones that students can shoot for as they really figure out where their areas of strength lie. So one of our foundational competencies that we think our ninth graders, many of them have started to really embark on, is under engages inclusively with the community. And the skill is positive relationships with adults. Sometimes we don't think of that as a skill, but guess what? It really is. I bet you know a lot of teenagers who aren't good at forming positive relationships with adults. We think it's essential to their growth and development, and we know that colleges care about students who are willing to engage with experts, who are willing to talk to their professors and be self-advocates and want to develop those relationships. And so we met with kids and said, how's that going? Are you forming positive relationships with adults? Which ones? Is it happening in every domain of your life at Pomfret or more in one than in some of the others? And these reflective conversations are really helping students notice their learning as it's happening. And we got a ton of great feedback from the kids. There were some things that we thought they had started that they weren't really that weren't really part of what they'd experienced yet. But then they said, well, we did this other thing. We did this thing in our humanities class last week. Is there a competency that goes with that? And so we're revising our process, and with this year's freshmen and sophomores, we'll be continuing to have these conversations, helping the students use this, the online platform where they build their learning record as they go along. The traditional transcript, we continue to build for them, but this is a document that shows who they are, who they're becoming, and enables them to really have an invested role in building their own portrait that they are going to send to colleges alongside their transcript that shows that more three-dimensional view of what they've learned while they're at school. The whole value out of boarding school, right, is that this is a community that knows your child in a way that is really three-dimensional and 24 hours a day. And so this is an opportunity to reflect that learning in an easy-to-read snapshot that can help enhance their applications down the road and enhance their understanding of what their strengths are. As Heather said, I'm happy to answer any questions about any of this at the end, but I'm going to invite her back to the podium to keep the party going.
True confession, I don't know how to drive stick either. Yeah, Mr. Daly tried to teach me many years ago on his truck, and let's just say we made it through. We're still married 27 years in, but it was a moment. It was definitely a moment, at any rate. So thank you for that, Gwyneth. I really appreciate that. And then last year, I wanted to touch base and just to be able to share this list. Last year was another strong year for college admissions. I think I'm impressed by both the breadth and depth of the list. Everything from state research institution to NESCAC schools to a cohort of really great Southern schools and the Ivy League. And last year, members of the class of 2025 chose to attend 80 different colleges and universities, which is a testament to that breadth and depth of the college preparatory experience we have here at Pomfret. It was great to see so many of you yesterday at the Carey Lecture with Mike Drish from Vanderbilt. I hope you enjoyed, for those of you who took advantage of them, this morning's sessions on athletic recruitment, financing a college education, and the Holistic Admissions Toolkit, as well as the panel that took place just before this conversation. And then, of course, this afternoon, we have the college fair that many of you may choose to attend. In keeping you all abreast of things that are happening here on campus, we were fortunate enough 2 weeks ago to have Dr. Virginia Adewole, who is the class of 1994, and she was our 2025 LaSalle visiting alumna. And this is a program that brings alumni home to Pomfret to share their time, talent, knowledge, and real-world experiences with students and faculty every year. Virginia, who is also a Pomfret trustee, is the Assistant Chief of Hospital Medicine at Kaiser Permanente in Los Angeles. During her visit to campus 2 weeks ago, she visited classes, ate with students, and had a conversation right here in Hard Auditorium about her path after Pomfret and the journey that led her to becoming a physician, as well as her experiences caring for patients at Kaiser. It was an incredible speech. I hope a lot of you heard from your children about it. She is an amazing representative of Pomfret's alumni body, and it was a really an incredible moment to witness and hear a little bit about her path and how Pomfret impacted that path. Moving on. 2 schools, 1 road. In 2021, Pomfret launched a rivalry with the Millbrook School Mustangs. If you're looking at sort of the where the red dotted line leads, that's right about where I grew up. Millbrook sits at the other end of Route 44 in Millbrook, New York. It is now an annual event because we had never before had a school rivalry going, and that was seen as something that we really hope to be able to build. The Battle for Route 44 is definitely one of the biggest days on our school calendar. And it is a day-long tournament, which includes field hockey, volleyball, soccer, and cross-country this year. And eventually, based on the results of those contests in every level, JV, varsity, and thirds if we have them, ultimately one school wins the Peck Pulling Trophy, named after the founders of our 2 schools. There's a little pressure. This year, Millbrook is coming to us, and we have won all 4 of these days since the rivalry started. I do not intend for my first year to be the year when we lose. So students, take note. The gauntlet has been laid down. And if you can, I would invite you to and encourage you to come out and cheer on the home team this year on November 8th. It's going to be amazing. I'm excited for all that lies ahead. It's been an amazing start to the year, as I've said. I hope you all are coming away with a sense of excitement, and also a sense of the possibilities for your children here at Pomfret. I think that is one of the things that I love best about our schools, are the way that students come and have, a sense of who they are at a time in their lives when so much about who they are is being formulated. And they have the opportunity in an environment that is entirely tailored to who they are, built around them, with opportunities that are absolutely incredible, and faculty members and staff who are encouraging of them taking risks and growing into who they're going to become. So now I'd like to open up the floor to any questions that you all may have. And we do have a mic, so if you need a mic, we can provide that.
I'm getting my steps in. It's great.
Regarding the Pomfret Learning Record, I know you mentioned that it's student-based and student-led. Is there input from faculty on those competencies, and what does that look like? Because your student might think that they are at one level of competency in that area, and they may be at a totally different.
The answer is yes, and I'm going to let Gwyneth.
Oh, heavens, yes. So every student is, and this is a process that's actually one of my weekend projects to kind of put some things in ink that are currently in pencil. But every freshman and sophomore this year is going to be assigned to what we've been calling a learning record guide. So this is a faculty member who has a cohort of, maybe 10 to 12 freshmen or sophomores with whom they're going to meet periodically over the course of this year. And we've built time into the final assessment week for those meetings to happen. One of the challenges last year was that we had these learning record guides for the freshmen, but we hadn't built in the time. And so sometimes it was hard for those folks to schedule those meeting times with the ninth graders. So now we have dedicated time for those conversations to happen. We're looking through the curriculum and looking through their co-curricular experiences and trying to curate the subset of competencies that we think are most likely for freshmen and sophomores to be generating evidence of. So we're going to guide them toward those. And then we envision that as kids get into their junior year, it's going to become a little more personalized, and students are going to elect the competencies, but by then they'll be familiar with the process. And for every competency, there is a faculty approval component of it. So it's connected to something that's been faculty vetted, so that there is consistency across those. So if a kid submits for a competency and we're like, not quite there yet, they'll get that feedback and we'll let them know what they need to do to get there.
Hi, Heather. You've been here for a couple of months, and I'm just wondering, what are the one or two things that you love about Pomfret that you say, oh, I really want to retain that? And what are one or two things that you say, hey, I got to, maybe these are the improvement areas, I want to change these?
Thank you. I would say that the thing that jumps out to me first and foremost is the culture and the community. One of the things that I have always sought in the schools in which I've been a part of is a sense of authenticity and warmth. And what I would say, I don't know, as you all navigated your journey in schools, when you walk onto a campus, there is a feel. Schools in many ways have personalities or cultures. The personality much like people do in that sense. There is a feeling that you get. And there are some places that you walk into and it feels very formal and not particularly warm. One of the first chapel talks I gave was to talk about my experience, interviewing, and that was something that I was really looking for. Where was this a place? Number one, that students and faculty felt like they could come. And adolescence is also a time where, you are figuring out who you are and sometimes struggling to fully be yourself. Sometimes we feel like we have to posture. And I just appreciated that warmth and authenticity. So that is something that I feel is essential to Pomfret. I think that has been something, it's a kind place. I think this is a place where people really care about each other. And for me to preserve that and to ensure that we build on that is a really important piece for me. I think, another thing that I love is the fact that there are great moments, I think, where our students can just be silly and be themselves. The Forum Olympics is something that everybody should see, because when you have sort of, 6'4" students on mini tricycles there's no way of looking dignified or cool as you're crossing the floor with that, right? And just sort of allowing themselves to, in that moment, be free and not to be thinking about how they're being perceived, but just like, you got to be the first one to get to the other side there, and you need to do that for your form so that they can win this thing. I think that's the other piece that I love, are those moments where our students are not afraid to be kids as well, because there is that, they still are in many, many ways, and to have that joy is a really important thing for me. In terms of thinking about moving forward, one of the things that I think that I'm thinking about are ways to develop, and I talked about this at PPEC the other night. One of the things that I want to look at is how we give students greater agency and opportunity to have more leadership opportunities in helping to build and develop that culture. I think the most powerful schools, it's not the adults certainly can help set the tone, but oftentimes it is the students who drive the culture forward, and thinking about the role that older students have in passing that culture on to the next generation of students, kind of showing them the way. There are challenges ahead, and there are, headwinds ahead, thinking about access and affordability in our schools, knowing that less, than 1% of families in America can afford the tuition here, and thinking about how, as I said, building communities for me, and who is on this campus and making up our student body, and the opportunity to have an access to an education like that. So thinking about ways that we continue to make this something that is accessible to more and more families. So those are some of the things I'm thinking about.
I was just wondering, for juniors and seniors, this is actually for it's kind of like, how are the competency, all of that stuff, how is it relevant if you're junior or senior? Because I hear, you're talking about freshmen and sophomores.
It's a really great question. Thank you. And I meant to say this, so I'm actually doubly glad that you asked it. So when we initially developed the learning record, we thought, let's get this to market as soon as possible. And I reached out to the juniors and seniors, and I said, who wants to build a learning record? And then I gave them a list of 49 competencies, and I said, cool, let's go through the list and see which ones you think you have and how you know. And they curled up in the fetal position on the floor of my office and completely shorted out. So it turned out that was the wrong approach for the group as a whole. That being said, if from what you've heard about the learning record, you're thinking, gosh, this would be a great fit for my junior or senior, please have them reach out to me, because I am still happy to sit down with an individual kid, and really, like, if it turns out to be all of them, I'll sit down with 150 kids, whatever, and talk them through the process. And I know a lot more now about how not to give them 49 competencies all at once. So juniors and seniors are certainly invited to build a learning record. It will be harder because they're reflecting on a much longer trajectory than our freshmen and sophomores are. But I'm happy to give it a shot, or at least have the initial conversation with them about that possibility. But it's something we are requiring for our freshmen and sophomores.
Yes.
Is there any discussion or intention to bring back Mandarin as a foreign language, or any other foreign languages, expanding on that curriculum at all?
So the question, and thank you for that, and thank you for using your outside voice, was whether there was any conversation around bringing Mandarin or other languages back into the curriculum. So I would say that 100 days in, I have not been part of a conversation along those lines. I think that one of the pieces that we certainly try to look at as a school, we have a number of different groups of people on campus who would be looking at different pieces. So thinking about curriculum and development. Some of that also is the size of our student body. What have enrollments looked like? So those are pieces that oftentimes aren't as simple as just saying, yes, we want this. But part of it is, do we have enough students to enroll, and to think about those pieces? So as far as I know, we have not had a conversation this year about that process of bringing that back. But Gwyneth, you could certainly perhaps speak to.
Sure.
Yeah.
I would love to continue to offer Mandarin. The reality is that in the last year that we offered Mandarin, only 19 students in the whole school were taking advantage of that opportunity, and about half of them were native speakers taking our advanced Mandarin literature class. And so I think a lot of students like the idea of being able to study Mandarin, but then when the rubber meets the road, they choose something else. And that has a lot to do with their experience in middle school. So many of our feeder schools are only offering Spanish, French, Latin. And so when kids come to high school, they want to keep studying the language they've been studying. And so that accounts for some of it. We have had students engage in Mandarin and many other languages, Swedish, ancient Sanskrit, through the independent study program. And sometimes that's a matter of leveraging online resources, or sometimes we happen to have a campus resource a teacher who happens to have that knowledge, who can oversee an independent study. So students who want to study a language we don't offer should come and talk to me. But as far as meeting that 3-year requirement of a world language, at the moment we've only been able to sustain those 3, French, Spanish, and Latin.
Okay.
Thank you again. As I said, thank you to so many of you who've taken the time to be here, to engage with your children's teachers, to take part in the different programs that we have. I'm excited to see many of you out on the fields. I will be the one zipping around in a golf cart trying to get to 10 different events. But I'm really excited. I hope that if I didn't have the opportunity to say hello to you individually today, that we will have the chance to cross paths. And thank you again for the honor of having your children here with us. They are what makes this place as amazing as it is. And I hope that you're seeing a little bit of their light as you are in your travels over the course of the last few days. So thank you, and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend.